Stacey J.
And I'm Chuck Duran.
Welcome to VO Buzz Weekly, the web entertainment show dedicated to the voiceover business.
That's right. And on today's episode, we have part 2 of the interview with the awesome Scott Brick. You do not want to miss this.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Scott, with doing so many titles, there has to be some books or that stand out to you as the weirdest, the funniest. What is like a highlight for you?
The weirdest was the funniest.
Oh, good.
This was like 10 years ago. I was brand new, and we were approached to do German audiobooks, but not in German audiobooks in English.
Okay.
And I thought, because I can do a German accent, but and my brother took German, but I'm like, I don't speak a word of it. But they said, no, we don't want it in German. In Germany, there's a large percentage of people who want to learn English, and so they use audiobooks to practice. But they want to listen to a German book spoken in English, so they're more familiar. And I was like, wow, that is a niche of the industry. But okay,
I need a second to compute that. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
So I'm thinking that's fine. They're paying me. And actually they paid in cash, which was the only time that's ever happened. It made me kind of wonder if I was like, is this legal? But anyway, they say to me, they said, yes. The book is called Blow Up Your Limitations. And I said, blow up your limitations. So yes, but it loses something in the translation. I said, well, yeah, I would imagine it would. Yeah. But I got the gist of it. It was a self-help book. Destroy your limitations. Whatever is holding you back, blow it up.
Okay.
But it was so Germanic in the way that they wanted you to blow this stuff up. It was crazy. Well, first of all,
how do you blow them up German style?
Oh God!
Do you remember?
Yeah, I do. I have to just go back a little bit to say about how odd it was. What was weird wasn't just the fact that I'm blowing up my limitations. What was weird was the producer, this guy from Germany. He shows up, and he's like, "Hello, my name is Ferris Bueller."
No, it was not.
I'm totally serious. And I'm like, what? And he goes, yeah, Ferris Bueller. And I'm like,
where's the camera?
Yeah, I'm literally looking like Matthew, I was like, okay. And I said, there's a movie. He goes, yes, I'm aware.
I'm aware.
Okay, all right. So this guy, and he's cross-eyed, and which was very difficult just to look him in the eye.
Goodness.
Not that there's anything funny about that, but it was like that, and the fact that he's Ferris Bueller, and he's telling me to blow up my limitations, and I'm like, oh my, what am I going to do? And I'm trying not to look at him, because I'm just laughing at what's on the page. They were saying, there was a section where it said,
I think sales of this book will be going up, by the way,
yeah,
after.
I've never even heard of this book since then. I never got a copy of it. I want to hear it.
I want to hear it.
I want to hear it. I want to hear from a German who's actually listened to this book. But this page, and I kept it because I swear if I told it, and nobody would believe me, it's true, God's honest truth. It says, it's talking about creative visualization, right?
Okay.
Name it and claim it. It says, if you want to be a success, do not hang out with losers. Losers do not help the world. Losers do not create contraptions that benefit mankind. Losers do not pay their taxes. Losers do not benefit their fellow men. Hanging out with losers, they will only drag you down into their own dilemma. And I'm like, holy crap. And so there's this little pause, and I hear this, yes, Scott, that sounds terrific. Can you perhaps do that with a little less German accent, please? And I was like,
oh, you got
and I hadn't even I wasn't doing it with a German accent. I wasn't doing the book in a German accent, but this section talking about, losers, do not hang out with them. I couldn't help it. I'm like, it sounds better in the original Aryan, so it just came out. And he's like, yes, perhaps we can do it without the accent.
A little warmer, a little smile in your voice.
So good.
And, they're translating it. It's so freshly translated, the paper was still warm. I mean, they literally had just printed it out. Yeah. They had just gotten done translating it, and they had quoted Shakespeare. So Shakespeare had been taken from English and put into German for the original German version of this, and then it was retranslated back into English. So it said,
hello.
It said, a rose by any other name would not smell as sweet. And I'm like, that's wrong. And they're like, yes, but it's what it says. So if you could just read it as is. I'm like, no, I did Shakespeare for 10 years. And no, it was nutty. And I was just literally, I was at the end of my rope, and I thought, I just can't do this. And then I thought, they're never going to pay me. I'm never going to see these guys. And they had me cash.
Wow, you
Okay.
blew up those limitations.
Yes, I did.
Wow, yes we do.
Yes, I did.
Wow, well, I'm going to try to find that book. And
Yeah, and if anybody
see
out
it.
there can find it, let us know. We want it.
and
In
if
the
you
next-
have losers in your life,
Do not hang out with them.
No.
But in the next studio next door, they were doing another one. They were doing 4 books total. The studio next door was called Lose Weight the German Way.
ooh,
And I'm like, what's the cover art on that? Is
Yeah,
like a
right?
looter up
The
against somebody's
German way
head?
is
I'm
like,
like, I don't want to be in
do
the
it
way.
or else.
Yeah.
I'm part German, so I wonder.
So am I.
Oh boy,
I'll
I'm
have to
not.
ask my mom about
but
that.
not that part.
So you're
That's an
teaching.
awesome story.
It is. That's a great story, man. Thank you for sharing it. You're teaching some workshops.
Yeah.
With our good friend Pat Fraley. who we
Great
love
Pat
and
Fraley.
respect.
Yeah.
What made you want to teach?
You know, I don't know. I think it started years ago. My English teacher in Porterville, her name was Shirley Hickman, and
Hi,
whenever hi Shirley, she's
Shirley.
retired now. I wish she was still teaching because she's the best teacher. She would always have her former students when they were back in Porterville. She would always have them come and talk for the day to the class to
that's
talk about the
great.
college experience because this was to prep you for college. And when she found out that I was a working Shakespearean actor, that I was touring and making a living doing Shakespeare, she's like, a guy from Porterville is doing Shakespeare for a living. So she would bring me back one day a year, and I would just teach her classes all day for that one day. And I just grew to love it. And it was actually even before I was doing audiobooks. So when I started doing audio, I just leapt at the first chance, and Pat approached me years ago, and you always hear that cliche about you want to give something back to the industry, but I think cliches are cliches because they're true.
Yeah.
And Don LaFontaine he took I think what was originally a Bible quote where it says, if those who are given much, much will be expected of them.
Yeah.
He changed that. He said, those who are given much, to those who are given much, much will be demanded.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way to look at it. You have to give back. You have to help somebody else. And look, audiobooks is the coolest job I've ever had, and I would just feel like a really selfish prat if I wasn't trying to help somebody else have the same cool experience that I'm having,
Right.
you know?
That's great.
So we get to teach together about 3 or 4 times a year. Once a year we do something called the $1 Billion Read,
Yeah.
which is kind of more skills oriented. And his class is great because when you take it, it's not just learning, it's your time in the studio is recorded and it becomes your audiobook demo.
Right.
And you could spend, $800, $1,000 just on the demo alone, and that's actually included in the price of the
Right.
the weekend class.
And
So
and if somebody wanted to find out more about how they can do that, is there a
they can
website
go
or
to
something?
my
they can go to?
website is scottbrickpresents.com. That's scottbrickpresents.com. I've actually got a blog on there where I talk about how to make an audiobook demo because that's
great.
that's the
Yeah.
subject I'm asked
because
about
it's
the
such a
most.
specific kind of demo.
yeah,
People
and-
think they can throw a commercial demo. It's not.
And you're the demo guy. You know demos, but the crazy thing is as great as the demos are for a commercial demo or for a promo demo, you send it to an audiobook producer and they will literally throw it in the trash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's such a waste. So I
Yeah.
tell people, don't do it. Make your audiobook demo. Don't waste that first opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can go to my website or you can go to Pat Fraley's website, which is patfraley.com, and Fraley is Fraley.
There you go.
In addition to teaching, you're working on 2 projects, 2 literary projects.
Yes, I am.
Tell us about that.
Well, I can't teach often enough. I love to do it, but I can really only have time to do it, 3 or 4 times a year. And a lot of people get in touch and they ask me for a private session, and I don't have the time. I've got to do the books, so
Yeah.
I feel guilty. So to assuage my conscience and actually just have more of that, teaching experience, I have
Yeah.
been writing down. In print, I'm working on a book called Narrating Audiobooks Brick by Brick.
I love
Yeah.
that.
So,
Beautiful.
and my literary
came up
agent.
with
Well, actually, not even me. My best
Really?
friend. He's my best friend Richard. He's
Nice.
Hi,
Job,
Richard.
Richard.
Richard Parsons. He's the name guy. He named my company. I'm like, I've got a company where I'm producing audiobooks. What should I call it? And he's like, duh, Brick by Brick audiobooks. I'm like, oh yeah.
That's
so
great.
Beautiful.
yeah. So I'm working on that, and my literary agent is shopping it around, and we're talking to people who are making apps so that we can make it both a print and an audio version at the same time, and embed
that's great.
audio, separate audio files. Like if you want to hear me just reading a certain section, or video of how the page looks, or just a JPEG, an image
Right.
of the studio, what have you. That basically you can treat it like an app and go wherever you need and
That's
learn
cool.
that particular skill. Yeah, so I've got that coming out, but
Yeah, but you have a novel.
yeah, I've got a novel.
That's been a while coming, right? Have you been working on that, or is that
According to my agent, it was a very long time coming. It was crazy long.
Oh, we're not listening to the agent.
I wasn't going to write a novel because I literally never thought about it. But I've been a writer my whole life, and I'd written screenplays, and I'd written like 300 magazine articles.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
thought a novel would just be too hard, so I wasn't interested. But somebody who worked at Random House about 5 years ago asked me, why don't you write one? And I thought, I'm not going to do that. He says, no, write one. There's plenty of people who listen to books because it was just read by you, so write one. And I thought, no. And I was about to say no a third time when I thought, I'm an idiot if I say no a third time. That's crazy. Because he said at that point, he goes, no, write it and we'll publish it. I thought, yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
stupid.
don't say no, Scott. Come on.
Now, I have to point out, he's not at Random House anymore. So I mean, that deal went with him. But still, there was a screenplay I'd written years ago, and I didn't like how it turned out. And I thought, my problems with it, I think I can fix in prose rather than visually. So I started adapting it, and it's a supernatural thriller, a murder mystery set in the modern day, but it's in a real small town, Wethersfield, Connecticut, where a murder happens. And I've been so blessed. I've got the Wethersfield police chief of police in Wethersfield has been my technical advisor on this.
Oh, that's great.
Because I called up the department. I'm like, the main character is a detective in Wethersfield. What would you do if there was a murder in Wethersfield? And he was like, I said, do you have a detective I could talk to? And he goes, oh heck, I was chief of detectives for 8 years. You should talk to me. And he loves mysteries.
Wonderful.
So yeah, he's been
that's
helping me, and it's like
perfect.
everybody in Wethersfield has been just a huge help. And I finished it about 2 months ago.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
That's huge.
congratulations.
So
That's a
when you
big
were
deal.
writing it, did you find that are you going to narrate it yourself?
They'll probably get some British guy or a celebrity to
Right.
do it. I don't know.
Maybe the voice of Siri.
Yeah. As you were writing it, though,
Yeah.
were you writing it and trying to imagine what it would sound like, too?
Yeah, but the crazy thing is in audiobooks you typically write, you're narrated by the same sex as the author, typically because men are going to write about main characters, and
Right.
women will write about women. The main character in the book is a woman, and so I'm like, oh crap, maybe they're going to have a woman. No, that can't happen. No, I'm going to narrate
No.
this. So I sat there going, how can I make it, I don't know, sound more butch, so it's like, more realistic that I would be reading it. But yeah, there were sections that I changed because I thought I'm not gonna do that out loud.
Right.
And actually, I had a lovely thing happen years ago. I was interviewing Stephen J. Cannell from The Rockford Files and 21 Jump Street and all those great shows, and he had been doing the series, the Shane Scully novels. He had become a novelist, and he wanted to do an in-studio interview where I'm interviewing him. I thought that's great. So I'm chatting with him. He was talking about how he was dyslexic, and so he wanted to get me to take over the series because he just couldn't stand reading his own books anymore. And so at the end of the interview, he turns the tables on me and he goes, well, when I got to my last question, he goes, well, I got some questions for you. And he pulls out his little book and he starts asking me questions, and he's interviewing me. He's such a lovely guy. And he asks me about the book. I had just started writing it. And he goes, so he asked the same thing. He goes, well, who's going to read it? And I said, oh, I don't know. They'll probably hire a celebrity to do it. And he goes, tell you what, I'll do your book. And I said, seriously? And we actually talked about doing like a little promo, like a little contest, whose voice is it? Which author just read that chapter? And he was going to do it. And
Wow.
sadly, he passed away
he
last
did.
year. And it broke my heart. So I dedicated the book to him.
That's cool.
I was like, I really
When
wish
is
he
it
could've.
coming out? Can you say,
Well,
or do you know?
I'm actually, at the moment, my agent hasn't even started shopping around yet, only because we're waiting on one last technical advisor to go over
Well, when it comes
the
out,
forensics.
number one, we want an autograph copy.
Yep.
And number two, we'll have you back on so you can
Fabulous.
read it to us
Yeah.
page by page.
Fabulous.
Now, you narrated Moneyball by Michael
Yes.
Lewis, yes?
He forgot for a second.
He's like,
yes.
I
Well, I
did?
did it 8 years ago.
There's been
okay.
so many.
When the book came out, yeah.
Right. Okay, so obviously there's been amazing books made into movies. what do you? I mean, sometimes the movies are successfully translated from the book, but sometimes they're not. I mean, for example, Moneyball. What do you think about Moneyball?
I'm amazed that they made a movie out of it, because as I was reading it, it's nonfiction, and it doesn't really lend itself to what you think of, a Hollywood blockbuster would be.
Right.
And that's typically what they try to make, rather than, let's say, an art house film. But really, when we watch the film, my girlfriend, she says to me, she says, this is a movie about a really sad man. You notice that Brad Pitt's character is still wearing his wedding ring.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
been divorced a long time.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a masterful job of turning, when I didn't even, and my job is to see the story in things, and I didn't even see the story in that book. When I heard they were making a movie out of it, I thought it can't be done. But it was beautifully done. And I wish I knew what that thing was in any book, so you could guarantee, this will make a great film.
Yeah.
I did Steel, the Richard Matheson short story that Real Steel was made from. Had nothing to do with the short story. That was a successful film, but it was not the story,
Yeah.
But you never know.
So we heard, and maybe this is true or maybe it's not true, you'll have to tell us, that when you walk in through the doors of Random House and you look at the walls, that all you see is Scott Brick, award after award after award. And
When are they changing the name
is
to
it
Scott Brick?
wallpaper, or are these real awards?
Did you go in there and put all that up? Be honest. Or
I have to admit, I didn't give any of them that, but for one year for Christmas, I did give Dan Musselman a picture of myself. It was in the LA Times. I was like, oh, I'm so egocentric. No, I've been really blessed. Magazines and newspapers, the Wall Street Journal put me on the front page years ago, and they came out to observe me in the studio at Random House. And so the head of Random House had this plaque made up. And
November 2004, if you guys want to find it.
There, nice,
there
wow.
The Golden Voice.
I didn't even remember that.
That's what I'm here for. I got your back, man.
But even others, like, the LA Times did an article and the Daily News did an article. The picture I got from the LA Times was actually, it was just a nice black and white. It was huge. It was just me in the studio. And we couldn't find the photographer. It took us about 5 years, and Dan kept saying, I want to get that picture. And we finally tracked him down, and we licensed it to make a couple of copies. And so, I gave it to him for Christmas. But no, they just put it up in the front because they're getting publicity too. I mean, I felt honored that I was able to, put some of the attention where it really should be on the publisher. Random House has always treated me like family.
Well, we can visit it, but we unfortunately can't take our cameras in there. But we'll take your word for it that it's actually there.
Maybe Scott will take a little snapshot and we can share it with you guys a little later or something like that. Here's a question for you. And if you could give, because you teach and stuff like that, but just real quickly, people are listening out there, if you could give somebody a little bit of advice on how they could get started in, say, the business in audiobooks, what should they do first?
First thing you have to do is make your demo. You have to get the demo put together. And again, to go to my website, because it's a long subject. There's a lot to it. ScottBrickPresents.com, and you'll see a little learn icon. You can click on that. Make your demo, because without one, there's really no way to introduce yourself to the publishers. Once you have your demo, then it's just a matter of sending it out and waiting for them to listen to it. The advice I always give prospective narrators is, they always say, well, what can I be practicing while I'm waiting for them to call? And I always say just a couple of things. Do as much theater as you can, because it's going to help your diction. As much acting as you can. You should take a cold reading class, because there are times you're going to be asked to read things cold, and a cold reading class will actually tell you how to look at the page and see what's coming ahead, and that will really help you as a narrator.
And no, we're not talking about wearing a jacket while you read.
No. If cold reading, if you don't know what that means, look it up, Google it.
Then you definitely need to take a class.
But the last advice I always give people is tell jokes. And don't forward them, tell them. Read them out loud if you have to, but I believe that if you can do it on the micro level, you can do it on the macro level.
Yeah.
And a joke has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It has a setup and has the delivery. And those are things that newcomers can be practicing until they're waiting for the publishers to call them.
Awesome.
Okay, if you could pick any magazine that you could be on the cover of next month, which magazine would you be on the cover of, and what would the caption say?
Oh, wow. I know the magazine, and it's nothing glamorous. It's Holmes on Homes.
Homes on Homes.
Holmes on Homes. It's a Canadian
Not Homes on Wheels.
TV show.
Yeah.
It's on like the HGTV and DIY channels.
Yeah.
This guy's a superhero. He fixes problems that contractors messed up, and he changes people's lives. I would be on the cover, and Mike Holmes would be shaking my hand, and he would I don't know what the caption would be, but it would be something about. I mean, his name is Holmes, like Sherlock Holmes has an L in there, and he did the little takeoff on that, Holmes on Homes. So he would have to say something about brick, like I don't know.
We build our homes brick
by brick.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And they would hang that up at Random House too, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be one more to
If
add.
they didn't, I would give it to them for Christmas.
That's awesome. Scott, thank you very much for coming down.
It's my
VO
pleasure.
Buzz Weekly.
Continued success. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
for
man.
having me here. I watch the show, so it's cool to be here. And I'm just thinking about for the people watching, voiceover people always want to know how to get into the next kind of niche. It's like, how do I do promos? How do I do, I don't know, previews? And I'm like everybody else. I'm learning so much as I'm watching all the episodes. So it's really cool getting to actually be one. So whenever I write somebody back from my website, I usually say thanks for listening, but thanks for watching.
Yeah,
nice.
Thanks for watching.
Cool. See you next week. Well, that's it for us today. Thank you for watching, and be sure to tune in next week for another awesome episode of VO Buzz Weekly.
And go to VOBuzzWeekly.com and subscribe. Also, like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at VO Buzz Weekly. You guys take care out there, and just remember, you always have time for a little buzz.